Hey, what's going on, everybody? So I want to show you guys a giant batch of alternative technology here that we can be using so that we can basically start stepping away from this giant apparatus of pedophilia, mass death, and whatever, Satanism, whatever you want to call it, that we're seeing now. I want to give us alternative routes here so that we can start slowly peeling back the time, the energy, and the money that we're giving to these fucking corporations and politicians. And I want to preface this video by saying that not all of these things will work for everybody. Some of them might be very bad for your personal situation. Some of them might be very good. And I also want to say that you don't have to adopt everything because you know what? These corporations, the government, they have fixed costs. If you just start slowly peeling back as a percentage the time, energy, and money that you give them, that will be enough to hurt them. Remember, a lot of these corporations specifically are running on razor thin margins. If even 20% of their customer base gave up their product and stopped using it, that would be a huge fucking problem for them, which is exactly the goal that we're trying to achieve. So I implore you, as I, go through some of this stuff, just think about what you can use in your life and to what extent you're willing to change in order to hurt these people, because they definitely deserve it at this point. They're not being held accountable and they're doing some pretty nasty shit. So let's start off with this one. Microsoft, we got Bill Gates, likely, molesting children. I'm going to be swapping to Linux soon. I'm going to do a dual boot. I'm going to do a factory reset on my Windows operating system. And then I will put everything that I think is really important on Linux. And I will only use Windows for the stuff that is absolutely essential, which will be maybe 3 or 4 programs from what I can tell. Basically everything else I'll be able to do on Linux. And here we have Linux Mint, which is the easiest, most intuitive, most alike Windows distribution version of Linux that there currently is. And the great thing about it is that it's completely free. You can donate to them. I probably will be doing that in the future, so long as they maintain their operating system's quality. But this is one really good way to get away from Windows, especially if you're using a conventional PC and you're not on Apple. So if that's something you're interested in, I would highly recommend this distribution. Now, if you're a gamer like me, you can get this thing called Proton. If you don't know what that is, it's basically an intermediary software that allows you to play many of the games that are currently on Steam. It's upwards of 70% are considered playable. You may have to turn down the graphics, you may have to make some level of modification, but most of them work pretty well. And in fact, 12% of the games on Steam have versions for Linux, so they will run absolutely fine. In fact, Steam, back in the day when it was being developed, was developed with the idea that it could be run on Linux entirely without any problems. So if you're a gamer, don't worry, you will still have plenty of games to play. And if you're not, check this out. We have a company called KDE, and there's a lot of companies like this in the Linux space. Companies that basically just take donations and they do this stuff out of pretty much pure passion. But you have a website like this that has all kinds of different software. Things for development, education, they have some games, graphics, internet, multimedia, office, your system, and utilities. In the office, for example, we basically have what I might call rudimentary office programs, like Word, like Excel, like PowerPoint, and a graphic designer here. They're pretty basic. They're not like the stuff that you would pay for that you use on Windows, but there are alternatives as well that have been created specifically for Linux. So you can get pretty much all the same stuff, but here right off the bat, I want to assure you that there's tons and tons of programs that will get you started. If you need to write a document, if you need to manage your money or anything like that, they have it for Linux. It's all here. I mean, this one company has pretty much everything you would ever need in a more rudimentary sense. These programs are pretty basic, but you know what? They're not going to fucking take your data. That's for sure. You're going to download one of these programs and it's just going to run. It's going to be very simple and intuitive. And unless you're a specialist working in a field, they're going to work for you in your life. I can guarantee that. We even have one interesting here that I found. It's called Cleopatra. This will allow you to basically send encrypted messages. I looked up a quick tutorial. It took about 5 minutes for them to explain it. It basically generates a key that goes with your message, and then nobody can read what you're writing except for the people that you send that key to, which just goes to show you that your privacy on Linux is so much better. And before I move on, Linux is a much more efficient operating system. I forget how many gigabytes of memory Windows is up to now. I think it's like 8 gigabytes or something insane like that. Maybe it's like 6 gigabytes. But most Linux distributions are well under a gigabyte. I think Linux Mint is like 250 megabytes or something like that. So making that switch will actually improve, like quite significantly improve your computer's performance. You will free up a whole bunch of processing power. And so speaking of processing power, if you're somebody that's not really liking the cost of RAM or GPUs lately, where they've increased in some cases by like 300% in just the last 6 months, I want to introduce a possible alternative for us gamers out there. Something that I really like is the old stuff. I really like the Game Boy Advances, which, by the way, you can buy for a fraction of the price of even a single stick of RAM. In this case, it's $274 for a custom Game Boy Advance built to order. And these aren't actually exactly like the old Game Boy Advances. They're actually a lot better. I'll show you a video here. This is kind of what goes into them. They have improved screens, improved buttons, improved speakers, and improved battery life. They're just overall better, and I'm pretty sure that they have more power than the old ones as well. But you can see that they boot this thing up, man, and it looks beautiful. Like, you can do all kinds of stuff. And yeah, many of them are refurbished. You know, that's fine. This one looks really clean, and this is kind of like what you can expect now. But you can get all kinds of stuff for this. What they're actually doing now is they're creating reproduction Game Boy games. I don't know how they get away with this. I don't know if this is like legal or anything, but for the time being, a game like Zelda, the Minish Cap, if you know anything about Game Boy games, $20, man. And they're saying that these games function and play exactly like the originals. This is something I'm definitely going to get into in the future. This is definitely something that I'm going to invest in, because I actually still have some of my old stuff and I still play it. I'm a real big fan of that Kirby. So I don't know, I think this is really cool, and I just want to let you all know that this is something that you can get into. And not only that, but you can actually, there is a way to put a whole ton of Game Boy Advance games onto something like this, which is basically an SD cartridge. This one's $100, but you can store like hundreds, if not thousands of games on something like this, and then you have your custom Game Boy, and you can just sit there and play forever, okay? So if you're sick of the microtransactions and you're sick of these fucking corporations making dog shit AAA titles every single year, maybe look at going back to some of the old stuff back when they actually made good fucking games. But hopping out of the gaming sphere now, I wanted to expose people to some alternative stuff when it comes to their cellular devices. If you didn't know, yes, you can still get flip phones. If you're like me and I'm basically only using Spotify and YouTube on my smartphone at this point, I could totally go without it and basically just turn my phone into an iPod Touch. You can look at doing something like this. And there's a lot of other services out there aside from the big ones that are always advertising, like Verizon and AT&T and whatnot. And their prices are actually competitive. You can see that the phone was $20. And yeah, you can just buy the phone if you want, by the way. But they also have some decent plans if you're not a huge texter or caller like me. Personally, these are some things that I would look at. They do have a $50 a month unlimited plan. And so the only thing that you would really have to worry about is coverage, like where can you actually get service. But let me show you something here. When it comes to service, if you get something like this, the Moto G Play 2026, it's $60. You don't have to pay monthly for it. It'll do most of the things that a regular smartphone will do, albeit probably less processing power, probably not quite as much storage, and maybe not as powerful as a camera, but it will do most of the things that you want it to do. You can then pair it with apps that do what's called Voice over Internet Protocol, which is your basic calling and SMS, aka texting, that you do on your phone anyway. And here's what one of those services looks like. You have this one by CallCentric, for example. They have a North America basic plan for making calls, which gives you about 2 hours per month with additional charges for international calling. But for someone like me who doesn't really like being on the phone that much anyway, this might be a great option for me. And then when it comes to receiving calls, they have another plan. You can pay per the minute. It's about 1.50 cents per minute, plus the monthly fee of $2. This is great, keeps you off the phone, gives you an excuse to tell your boss or your nosy friends that you can't keep talking because you're losing money. Honestly, for me, this would be great. And then when it comes to texting, it's a cent. It's 1 cent per message. I probably send 3 messages a day. That end up being like $1.50 a month plus the fee. That's like $2.50 a month. So I would be, personally, for me, under $10 a month for making calls, receiving calls, and SMS. And then if I wanted to pair it with something like Starlink, for example, that would be great. And you might be thinking, well, Starlink, that's Elon Musk. Wasn't Elon Musk named in the Epstein files? Well, remember, the plan is not to be like an ascetic, technology-free monk or anything. Like, we still have to operate in our daily lives. The point is to make your life easier and take away as much as you possibly can while still functioning. So you may give up some stuff, you may end up engaging in other stuff, but this is just an example of the kind of thing that you can do. And if you're like me, where I basically always have internet, I could do a hybrid between this call-centric stuff, and then I could go back to the TracFone stuff, and I could pay, a very low rate for basically 100 minutes a month or something like that is cellular service. And that way I could actually call people when I'm out and about. Okay, so adaptability here and finding that lowest energy state is really the name of the game. With all of these alternatives, that's what it's all about. As long as you are spending less money, time, and energy, you are winning in my mind. And you are further starving these pedophilic parasites even more. So now let's go on to another one. For those of you who are committed to having powerful computers and want to spend the money on computer components or high-end computers, here is an alternative for your AI needs. If you haven't come across this yet, this is called Ollama. You just type in ollama.com, O-L-L-A-M-A. Here you can actually download all the popular AI models aside from like the most current ones. And a lot of these are actually quite powerful. They have all kinds of stuff. I know they have DeepSeek in here, but most of these are also very specialized for certain tasks, mostly coding, but also other things as well. And this does require a little bit of research. There's some variables here that you probably need to get familiar with, such as the parameter number, which will basically determine the amount of processing power that you will need to run the model effectively and how quickly it will generate responses for you. But I think this is incredible. You basically just down the Ollama software manager, and then you can just start downloading these. And yes, this does work on Linux, by the way. This is something that absolutely works on Linux. And then you're using your own processing power at home. And the beauty of that, again, nobody knows what you're doing. And a lot of these things too, they'll tell you whatever you want to know. Most of these AI models will not tell you like, oh, I can't say this or I can't say that. If you want to know something, it'll tell you it. It straight up doesn't care. But we're going to move on now. I wanted to let everybody know too that here on YouTube, you can watch movies for free. If you didn't know, you just have to watch some ads. And again, YouTube, Google, pedophiles. Believe me, I get it. But this is basically what I've been doing instead of going into Netflix all the time and, of course, paying them all kinds of money. YouTube and Google get way less money when you watch these movies, and remember, they have to pay to have these on here, but they get way less money than you would be giving to another corporation for basically the same thing. And if you still think that this is engaging too much with the system, because of course, if you want to watch a lot of these more M-rated movies, like maybe Tropic Thunder here, you would have to give them your ID. So for anything mature that you want to watch, you don't want to give them your ID, or you don't want to get anything with ads, and you don't want to contribute to the ad revenue at all. Well, I was able to find out there online, there are so many websites out there that will sell you like complete DVD sets, like even Rick and Morty, for like $12, $15 per season. And I may do a future video on stuff like that, like hardware, like CD players, MP3s, DVD players, whatever, all kinds of media technology that I think people will be going back to a lot because they want their privacy back, because they don't want to be spending all their money on subscriptions, and because honestly, subscription services are just getting worse and worse. But let's keep going here. I wanted to show you guys this as well. This is called the Buyer app, and this was set up by one of our YouTube buddies here. He's really into conspiracies. His name is Ian Carroll. If you watch my content, there's a good chance that you know of Ian Carroll. He actually set up this app called Buyer. It's buy''R, and it tells you who exactly is making money from your purchases at the grocery store. So when we're talking about these massive hedge funds, these massive private equity entities who are buying up all these companies and destroying them and strip mining them and just destroying our fucking economy and destroying the fucking fabric of our society, honestly. Now you can actually scan every item at the grocery store, or even possibly other places too. It might even work at Walmart on non-produce items, and you can see who your money is actually going to benefit and whether or not you want to support that entity. So for example, those of you who know of the apple cider vinegar, the Bragg's brand apple cider vinegar, that was actually bought by an investment group. And so I actually stopped buying that brand, and I've actually just moved to white vinegar for most of my recipes because I don't want to support that investment group. And so I highly recommend, downloading this app, and don't fucking support any of these pieces of shit. Don't fucking support these private equity guys. The second that any big entity comes in and buys up a business or a company, just stop buying from them. And eventually, even again, 20% of people doing this, if they immediately lose 20% of their customer base basically overnight because everybody catches on and boycotts them, that is a huge fucking L to these private equity firms. They're not counting on it fucking flopping that fast. They're not counting on that kind of a massive income reduction right off the bat. So yes, I highly recommend getting this app. But now I'm going to show you something else when it comes to accountability here. We have a website called ALPR.watch, where ALPR stands for Automated License Plate Reader. So as I'm sure you know, a lot of these fucking flock cameras have been coming up. This website tells you when and where meetings are happening at the government level to discuss the implementation of this technology. If you watch Louis Rossmann, I think he may have set this up, or he is just a huge proponent of this. I highly recommend that you guys check this every once in a while, see what's going on inside your state as far as these flock cameras go, and as far as big surveillance in general goes. If you have one of these little red exclamation marks over your town, go online, start looking at any kind of town hall or city meetings that might be taking place, and go voice your opinion and tell those fucking retards that we don't want their shit in our fucking cities anymore. All right, so I thought that would make a good addition. And now we're going to be going into some older technology, because I've been noticing lately that a lot of people are starting to really have problems with something as simple as heating their home. Well, if you didn't know, they do sell all kinds of wood stoves that burn wood in your home, and they're actually designed to heat very large spaces. I found this one here. This is more of a premium brand. I've actually found some that are like $500, but these kinds of stoves here at the $3,700 mark, these are supposed to last like 3 generations, right? Whereas maybe some of the cheaper ones will only last 20 years. But their claim on something like this is 1,400 square feet that you can easily heat with just some wood. And I know that in my state of Arizona, many counties have programs where you can actually pay like $15 or $20, and you can actually go into sections of the forest lands that are maintained by the government, and you can go pick up as much wood as you want. Because as they're maintaining the forest, they're cutting everything down. They allow people to go in and basically just pick whatever they want. So if you have a truck or any vehicle that's capable of bringing wood someplace, this might be an option for you. It does need a base below it, which is heat resistant, of course. And then, of course, you may want to put this in a location where you can actually have a hole through the roof so that the smoke can escape. But, you take a trip down to Home Depot and then, damn, man, you're sitting pretty. You could be heating your whole house with wood, potentially. And then that also allows you to escape the gas company, the electric company, if they start screwing you around. Because, of course, as we know, all these data centers are really driving up the price of everything. So this solution really is for those of you who maybe own a small house. If you think this is a good idea, if you see some usefulness with this here in terms of heating your house or maybe even cooking on top of, because they work well for that too, then I highly recommend doing something like this. Because you just take one trip out to the woods, you fill the back of your truck up, and you could probably heat your house for an entire week, which is a pretty good deal. But moving on now, staying in the vein of old school technology here, I want to remind everybody that they actually sell things like washboards. They actually still sell things like clothes wringers and agitation sticks, so that you could actually set up something in your house. If you're sick of the fucking smart technology, if you can't just find a washer and dryer that just work, you can actually create a pretty efficient clothes washing setup in your own home with a simple washboard and a clothes wringer and an agitator like this. And then all you have to do, you can even do this at your sink, where you fill one side of the sink up with your water and your detergent, you agitate it, you put it through the clothes wringer, you rinse it off on the other side, then you put it back through the clothes wringer, and then all you have to do is dry it. And this is something that I am definitely considering doing myself as well, because I am honestly just sick and fucking tired of swimming upstream against the current at this point. When it comes to my utility bills, when it comes to the technology that just doesn't seem to work anymore, I'm just tired of it. And stuff like this, it keeps you active. It's super cheap. It actually doesn't take as much time as you might think. It's definitely looking more and more attractive to someone like me. That's for sure. So I thought I'd share that as well. And then the final item that I have here is investing. I want to recommend that people consider the idea of putting some of their money that they plan on investing into precious metals such as gold and silver. And it's not just because these precious metals have been doing so well lately. It's also because we're seeing increasingly draconian and authoritarian policies coming out of our government when it comes to our money and where we can put it and what we can do with it and the percentage on a surcharge and on and on and on in the taxation, right? I mean, Kamala Harris was even considering doing a non-realized gains tax, which to me is just fucking bullshit. So you could come to a website such as this. I have ordered from JM Bullion like a long time ago. They're great. They did a good job, but I would highly recommend if you want to invest money nowadays and you're just planning to put some away, even just to keep up with inflation and not necessarily to make a ton of money, precious metals is a great store of value. I highly recommend it, and it's yours, and nobody can just take it out from your account digitally or anything like that. They'd actually have to break into your home and physically steal it from you, which is why they have safes and stuff like that. I think that makes this a great alternative. And again, you can do a partial commitment here. You don't have to put your entire life savings into this stuff. You just have to do enough to feel comfortable. I think that's the point. That's the whole point of this video, guys. You don't need to be some kind of fucking outlaw. You don't need to adopt every single strategy and technique out there in the world. Just a partial commitment will send the message that people are getting sick and fucking tired of the system. The system that is molesting children and doing satanic shit, starting wars, all while instituting increasingly authoritarian measures against us, the people. And so if you guys really like this video, I'll do a part 2. I'll bring up some more stuff, some more alternatives, things that we can all look at adopting that take us back out of the realm of subscription and away from the child molesters and the authoritarianism. But for now, that's all for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.